Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's class. Our today's lesson is the total war and armistice in World War I. This is chapter number 14, section number 3. You can find this lesson in your textbook page number 467 to 471. This lesson is going to be for 2 weeks. So today we are going to discuss half of the lesson and the remaining portion will be in the next week's class. So let's move on to the first slide, which is about the objective of the lesson. The objective says that you must be able to describe how the World War I became a total war. You must be able to explain the effect that years of warfare had on the morale of the soldiers and on the public. You must be able to analyze the causes and effects of American entry into the war. You must be able to summarize events that led to the end of the war. So these are the objectives. Let's move on to the terms. Total war. Total war mean when a country, when a nation, when a state channelizes all of its resources into the war effort. It includes everything which ranges from war material, production of any other resource that can be helpful in the war, even the channelization of human capital into the war effort, even the use of media, even the use of any possible mean that can be used in any possible way into the war. So that kind of effort is known as total war. Conscription mean the military order which forces or which requires that every young person has to join the military service for the sake of country. This conscription is imposed only during the times of emergencies. It means that you cannot refuse. You have to join if you are medically or physically fit. Contraband mean during the wartime, international law allows the countries to confiscate any material which is being transported to the warring nation, and that can be used in making military weapons or any kind of military equipment. So that can be confiscated. That material is known as contraband. Lusitania was a British ship which was sunk by the German submarine in May 1915. It resulted in the death of some American citizens, which ultimately created a huge shockwave throughout America, as well as it was one of the point from where the friction between America and Germany started. Propaganda, propaganda mean when you use any kind of idea to spread your cause, to promote your cause. Sometimes you are falsifying an information to promote your cause, and sometimes you are falsifying information to damage someone else's cause. So this can be in both way. Atrocity mean a horrible act that you commit against innocent people during the war. Armistice means when you agree not to fight anymore, to stop fire, cease fire. 14 points were a peace formula extended by President Woodrow Wilson of America at the end of war, or you can say to resolve the World War I and to avoid the future war. Self-determination, the right of the people to decide for their own that what kind of the government they need. This is called self-determination. War was going very badly for Germany, but still Germany was surviving. The joint forces, on the other hand, were making a strong effort, but still they were unable to defeat Germany. The suffering of Russians were also the biggest of all the warring nations. So Russia, they planned to make an early exit, which they negotiated with Germany, and this thing actually gave Germany an unprecedented control over the war. They got once again they got to a strongest point, strongest position. So Allies, they lost one of the two fronts. Now Germans, they could concentrate or focus only onto the Western front. But then things started to change again because America jumped into the war. We are going to discuss that how America joined the war. This is a story that we are going to discuss in the coming slides. But the thing to discuss here is that once America joined the war calculations once again fluctuated, and the things actually once again fluctuated away or against the German grounds. So the American arrival into the war allowed the Allies to reverse the gains that Germans made after the exit of Russians. So they were able to push the Germans back from France as well as Belgium. German generals, as a result, they told their king that they cannot win the war anymore. The nations participating in the war now they were trying to bring the war to its end because the morale was down, the war was unproductive, so they wanted to finish the war. But to finish the war now, they needed a strategy to bring Germany to its knees, and the only way to do this was to commit all-out war. The strategy of all-out war means, as I just discussed in the introduction slides, that to channelize all available resources to fight for your cause or to fight for your target. This includes imposing of the conscription, that every young person was forced to join the military and to contribute into the war effort, either by fighting, either by working into the war industries or in any other related effort. Setting up the systems to arm, transport and supply the armies in a more enhanced way, even raising the taxes and borrowing the money for the war effort, even limiting the food and other supplies to the general public, um, and strikes were forbidden. Uh, People were supposed to work without any kind of sense of benefit or sense of earning. They were supposed to work hard for the cause of nation, and the prices were controlled, so prices sellers or the businessmen could not sell any commodities beyond its reasonable price, and government had a very strict control over price mechanism. The other things that include in the total war effort was use of propaganda, use of women into the war effort. Maybe they are in the next slide. Let's move on to the next slide. Both sides, whether the allies, whether the central powers, they use propaganda in order to get the public opinion into the favor of war and to keep the morale high. They urge the civilians, in governments on both sides, they urge the civilians to donate or to contribute the money for the war effort, or to loan the money for the time being to their governments. They played up the enemy atrocities in order to keep the public opinion in favor of the war. What does it mean? That they portrayed the enemy's atrocities, enemy's war crimes, as an excuse to keep the public morale in favor of war, so that public pressure should not be leading to a protest against the war. So they try to portray the army as an they try to portray the enemy as a source of bringing terror and torture to the citizens of the victim country. So by this way they keep the public opinion labeled for fighting the war or to continue for the war, ultimately reaching to its end. They censored the press. They did not allow them to publish the war losses, and they forced the art to portray or to display the patriotic poetry and patriotic dramas in order to keep the public in favor of the war. So that was one of the way to use the propaganda in order to get to their cause. Next slide tells you that Next slide tells you that how they utilized women into the war effort. Women were placed into the war industries. They contributed in manufacturing. They contributed in military hospitals. Even those men who were sent to the battlegrounds, behind them, the women took over the jobs of the farming. Even they were hired into the armed forces as the administration officers, as the telecommunication officers. They were even hired into the uh, war industries where once they were completely considered as unsuitable. So this was their contribution that allowed the women to get their rights recognized soon after the war. That's what we can see, that US, Germany and Britain, they gave the rights of vote to their women following the World War I. So this is the first portion of the lesson, that how nations they contributed, they channelized their resources into the war effort. What was the reason that they wanted to bring the war to its end? Why? Because Russia made an early exit by signing a peace deal with Germany. Vladimir Lenin, the leader of the Bolsheviks, he took control of the power in Russia, and it was the start of a new era into Russian history, because they are going to they are going to witness the worst revolution under the leadership of Lenin. It was the Communist Revolution, and by this way the exit of Russia from the war gave chance to Germany, but the arrival of America into the war once again made those chances dull, and Germany was finally drifting towards their final defeat. Not only Germany, but Austria-Hungary and Ottoman Empire that were allies to Germany, they were also going to face the same dilemma. The disaster that was looming was just inches away. I hope it will help you to understand. We will complete the lesson into the next week. See you next time. Until that time, hopefully to see you soon. Until that time, Allah Hafiz.